My story begins when my oldest daughter, I started seeing some changes in her as far as related to her self-esteem and having a lot of talk about self-hate. She was 11, and so I got her into therapy. And then things started to actually get worse before they got better. Unbeknownst to me at the time, there were some risky behaviors already starting. A really unfortunate relationship formed with somebody. Didn't know it at the time, but at the time found out later that she was, sneaking out of the house almost every night. We started to have some attendance issues with school. And it seemed like really looking back, seems like I went to bed with a spunky, fun-loving, Jonas brother loving 11-year-old and woke up the next day to a kid who was just very dark. And initially I thought, well, this is just what happens, when you turn 12, 13 years old, this normal adolescence, not wanting to listen to your parents and listening to different music. And she had a whole different friend group. And then I will never forget, I got a phone call from the school and they had found a stockpile of pills in her locker. And I remember thinking, man, this is not even anything. I felt very disoriented, not knowing really what we were dealing with. In a short amount of time after that, she had her first suicide attempt and with an overdose. And I just remember following the ambulance being very disassociated. And was this really my life? And was this really her life? And what were we really dealing with? Many, many attempts, several inpatient stays, partial stays, lots of medication changes. Often people will say that you don't get a handbook for being a parent. Well, there must be a separate special chapter for being a parent to a child who is suffering with mental illness. I would spend the next decade fighting. Fighting for her, fighting for treatment, fighting for what she needed. And so what I realized very quickly is that I needed to educate myself because I was relying on professionals to guide me. And not all that advice was good. When I turned to what support system I had, I was told, things like, if you had more faith, she would get better. And what they didn't know is what was happening behind closed doors. And the amount of fight. There was no support. I didn't feel like anybody saw me. I learned quickly that I could not trust a lot of the professional advice I was being given, because at that time she was diagnosed with several different mental illnesses, and it wasn't just a defiance thing. It wasn't just an individuation of wanting to become her own person. That was in the mix, but there was also the complication of the mental illness and me feeling like there's not enough love to fix this. Trying to convince her to stay. And that became my responsibility. And I would remember just praying to make it one more day. My number one job became being her advocate and fighting for her and finding a way to help her. And there is no more hopeless feeling in the world than seeing your child feel like they can't find hope and that they don't see a way till tomorrow. I had so much love for her, more love than I could ever express, but I didn't feel like I could save her. And somehow we made it through, and somehow she kept fighting. And just when things started to feel a little bit lighter, her younger sister had a suicide attempt that I did not see coming. And I just remember thinking, I cannot believe I'm living this nightmare again. And just when I thought that we were at a point where we had some stability, I had another child who was suffering. And through all of this time, the thing that I fought against as well is I didn't want this to be my kid's story. I didn't want this to be my family's story. This isn't something anybody would ever ask for their kid. So if you ever think that somebody is doing this for attention, this is the last thing anybody would ever want to do. Over some time and with some therapy and being a little smarter about medications and therapy did help her sister, and our journey wasn't as long and it wasn't as much of a crisis. And then just a couple years ago, my son, as an adult, had a suicide attempt. And also didn't really see that coming. Knew he had been struggling, emerging into adulthood. His was more situational, which that happens too. And he ended up also overdosing. I remember getting a phone call from my oldest, who they lived together at the time, and they couldn't find him. And I remember that feeling in my stomach. I felt that before. I knew something had happened. And so I made my husband call the police because I didn't think I could bring myself to call. And they shared that, yes, that 10:30 that morning, there had been a phone call from that address of somebody who had overdosed. And so he was at the hospital. And since then, it took about a year, but he's definitely come on the other side of it, and he found a different psychiatrist and therapist and is now on the right medications and is actually thriving and doing well. I have 4 kids, and every one of my kids, for different reasons, is in therapy. And for me, it wasn't until I got to a point, probably sometime between my second daughter's attempt and my son's attempt, that not only was this my family's story, but I was the mom who they needed to walk them on this journey, to accept that as my story, our story. And I'm a big believer that if you are given a story, especially one that is so challenging, it can be so painful, it can be so difficult, you need to use that story to lift other people up and help people on the way, and put your arm around them and say, let's walk this together. I didn't have that on my journey. And so with the Salus Collective, the goal and the vision is that people who are in a situation like I have been many times over the years with different children would have somebody that would walk with them, and they would not be alone.